Hello, my name is Zachariah Van Sliders with Old Man Gaming, and you have decided to tune in to another horrible game review. So before we get into it, let's get into our usual disclaimers. Number one, the quality is as good as we can make it, but I am a house dad, so you might hear stuff in the background, you might hear my kid, you might hear my squeaky chair. We're doing the best we can. Number two, I don't give scored reviews. I don't believe in them for video games. Video games are one of the most subjective forms of art, in my opinion. And therefore, what you will get is you will get the overview of what the game is. Then you will get the pros and the cons from my point of view, of course, as all reviews are. And then I will tell you whether I personally will be sticking with the game after I am done with this review. The next disclaimer is I don't usually get a ton of time with these games. I usually get about anywhere between 5 to 10 hours with them. And actually, I kind of feel like in some ways that's superior. I'm not superior, but it's a different take and it's a good take. I think sometimes other in-depth reviewers get too caught up in the game and they forgive some things because they see the whole picture, whereas like I said, somebody with a family and a full-time job who only gets a couple hours to work, who only gets a couple hours to play these games a week, might not want to suffer through the first 6 to 10 hours to find something good. They might just want to play what they find fun right off the bat. If that's the kind of review you're looking for, well then, here I am. If not, there are many more in-depth reviews of this game out there. Go search them out. I urge you to do so. Finally, I have one more special extra disclaimer, and that is I think all reviewers they tell you that they're impartial and they're objective. And while we'd love that to be true, we are all humans. And I think that there is a bias in certain games that's hard to avoid. And while I try to stay objective in all my reviews, I'm going to find it very hard with this one because I am reviewing Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 1 through 3 were staples for me growing up with me and my brother. They were our reason to have the Sega Genesis, and they were a true bonding experience for us. So Streets of Rage 4 strikes a personal chord in me that is very deep and personal. So that being said, in the interest of transparency, I can't not point that out to you guys, that it might get a pass based on my previous experience with the series. Now, I'm going to do my best to point out everything that I think people would see wrong with this game, but if you see any, bad stuff, anything you think is hanky, it's probably that. Okay, enough with the disclaimers. Streets of Rage 4 is the game today. So after so many years, Streets of Rage brings out a new game. I believe it's with a new developer. I'm not quite sure on the developer, but it went into Games Pass for free day one. So I immediately started playing it. And gotta say, I'm very excited about this review. So what is this? This is kind of a throwback to the original 2D side-scrolling beat-em-ups, Streets of Rage, Double Dragon, those kind of games. And that's what this is. That's what this is a return to form to. But they also obviously wanted to build on that. First of all, they have a very clear list of button combinations that are both simple and elegant, but give you a wide variation of strategies in combat. This is something the original Streets of Rage never did. You kind of had to figure out how to do the attacks and how to do special things. So that was something that was a little bit nice. In any case, this game takes place 10 years after the last Streets of Rage. You have two series veterans, Blaze Fielding, the lady who is way too underdressed to be fighting crime, and then Axel, who is just this... He's awesome now. He's just a bearded, blonde, badass cop who looks kind of like a hobo. Then you have two new people coming in. Cherry, who is daughter of Adam Hunter from the first game. Then you have Floyd, who is the protege of Dr. Zahn. And if you remember Streets of Rage 3, he was the weird old Chinese-looking dude with the metal arms. So, there's a new syndicate. The syndicate seems to be run by the children, the offspring of the original Mr. X. So these four band together to go into the streets and basically beat up everything that is walking around outside. So the level design is basically that. You proceed through an area, you battle a lot of different guys, new enemies show up as you progress through the game, each with their own new behaviors and a new way of fighting. And then you proceed through these areas till you get to a boss, and then if you beat down the boss, you move on to another level. In between these levels, though, in addition to this game over the original ones, were these really well hand-drawn cartoon kind of comic story sections, which really tell the story. You know, back in the Genesis day, they didn't really have that. You kind of had to infer everything from what was going on. Each level also comes with its own variety of environmental hazards, weapons that can be picked up, objects that can be broken, objects that can have people thrown into them, and all sorts of different original stuff. Everything is hand drawn and cell shaded just beautifully. It's absolutely colored beautifully. There's nothing wrong with the art. I know we're not in the pros section, but it's just wonderful. So as you proceed through, you unlock certain things too. Unlike previous games, each level you start in, if you're doing the story mode, you start with the 3 lives, starting at 2, 1, then you get your 0 life. And then you can gain lives as you progress through and get more points. But each level kind of starts you back at 0. As you beat a level, you can actually start at the level that you were on, which is nice as well. You don't lose all the progress and go back to the beginning. In addition to that, if you go down, you can actually set different aids or handicaps that will help you get through if you're finding it too hard. You can also select different characters and try different things. Then there's an overall, point score leveling thing, which unlocks stuff as you go, I'm sure. So that's basically the overview. It's a very simple game, and very clearly a throwback and homage to that genre of play. So let's go into the pros. Okay, so the pros of this game has just the people who worked on this are dedicated fans of the original genre and dedicated fans of Streets of Rage. They took everything they loved from Streets of Rage and they put it in this game, and then they took everything that they thought that they could add to it to make it better, and they put it in as well. This is one thing that I really like about it. It is just, if you liked Streets of Rage 1 through 3, there's no world in which you don't immediately get butterflies when you turn this thing on and go into the first level. It's just one of the most exciting, like for me, there's a lot of games that have tried to capture that nostalgia and kind of let me down. This one doesn't. Like, just right off the bat, I'm like, oh, I'm back. I'm back on the Streets of Rage. I'm back playing Sega Genesis with my brother. Trying to get through it in 2 days because that's how long you could rent it for. It was just wonderful on that level. Another pro that they added is, one thing about the Streets of Rage original ones is I found it less skill related. This one is very heavy on the skill. The fighting, you can really go into it with kind of like each character has their own fighting style and play style, and you really need to find yours to kind of really maximize how good you are. I found like fighting with Cherry, say, she runs around the screen, she's very mobile, she can kind of attack from every level, but she doesn't do that much damage. Then you have Floyd, who is huge. He just picks up people constantly, like it's almost like an automatic power, and just throws them around, but he's very slow and very easy to hit. Then you have Axel, who plays very, very much like the original game. So each one is kind of its own play style. They felt very different. I never felt that way when I played the original games. I always felt like it was more of a stylistic choice over what you were actually like, over actually like a skill-based or style. Like, I thought it was more of a cosmetic choice than an actual influencing the play of the game. Whereas this one is not like that. Your character is very, like, you have to play it a certain way in order to get through it. The way they laid out the button combinations would be my next pro. I really enjoy them. They're all very simple combinations, and they're very easy to do, but elegant. They give you a lot of options without making it too overtly complicated, which is really nice, and I enjoy. My last pro, I'm going to do a double pro, and that would be the art is beautiful. It's handcrafted down to the line. The level design is absolutely phenomenal. The stuff that happens in this game is great. I think that you also fight cops in it, which is really like the way they chose to put the levels together. There are times where like you're actually in the center of brawl and the people who you're fighting are actually fighting each other as well. And it just gave this kind of more realistic kind of in the moment feel that I really enjoyed. The levels are so well done. Every level has some aspect that feels completely different from the last level, whether it be an environmental hazard, whether it be, oh, you've got to fight your way out of a prison cell, or it's moving objects that hit you. There's just every level presents a different feel to it that is just completely unique to the previous ones. And then the final pro is the music. God, it's so good in this. And I know the other reviews have said it's uninspired. I disagree. I think they took the original Streets of Rage music and they just made it so much better. Every one of them is toe tapping. They get stuck in my head. I can't get them out. I want to get the soundtrack. I loved that part of this game. While a lot of people didn't, a lot of other reviewers thought it was very baseline. I did not. I thought it was really like paid an homage while making something new and beautiful. All right, so that takes us to the cons. Like I said, cons were hard for me because I'm completely head over heels for this game right now, but there are some cons. And I think the biggest cons all come from a lack of pushing the envelope, a lack of going the extra mile to change it or make it a little bit different. So I'm going to put that all into one big con, because I don't want to break them all out, but I think that innovation could have been done here a little bit more than it was. Like, make the characters able to block. It would have made the game a completely different feel while still keeping that gritty feel and giving you more of that strategy, or even maybe like a dodge roll, which no one has. You have to really, really think about your movement in this game because you can't block and you can't dodge. So you have to hit first and hit them until they drop. So while that's maybe what they're going for, it's still, and I'm not even saying that's something I would want to see. I'm just saying there's a lot of ways they could have innovated this game, or a lot of ways they could have pushed the envelope, like maybe a leveling up system or a skill-based leveling up system like that. Something along those lines. They didn't do that. So on that level, it falls a little bit short. You're going to get to a point where you're like, yeah, this is a really great Streets of Rage game, but that is all it is. There's not a whole lot more to it. I really hope, I don't know that it will because it's a smaller release, but I really hope this game gets DLC, added characters, added levels. I think that will really make it a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, it's still just a Streets of Rage game, and it could have been even more than a Streets of Rage game. It could have taken the 2D fighting genre and just made it something even more. If I was making this game, and again, this could have been a mistake, but if I was making this game, I would have added a lot more to it than they did. But in that same respect, I know that they're trying to really speak to the traditionalists with this experience. So maybe in the next one we see more innovation, kind of like a Doom 2016 to Doom Eternal sort of situation. Another con, in fairness, is the story is a little cheesy. Now, I don't care about the story being cheesy. I like the story being cheesy because, again, I kind of feel like they were always cheesy, and that brings me back. I mean, there was a playable kangaroo character in one of their original games, so if it was a really good story, it would kind of not make sense. But trying to be fair, trying to be objective, so the story is very predictable and very cheesy. There's not much to it. But again, this is a 2D brawler. I don't feel like the story needs to be really complicated, but if you're looking for that, it's not there. I mean, really, that does it for the cons. I think the only other thing I could say is I would have liked a little bit more movement or in-depthness to the actual gameplay, or something that kind of pushed the envelope a little bit more. Some feature that just wasn't in the original Streets of Rage that kind of like made it even better, gave it another level. But that's all I can say bad about it. I just can't get myself to say anything worse about it. I definitely think it deserves a better score than most of the mainstream places have given it. So that brings us to whether or not I'm going to stick with it. And hell to the yes, I'm going to stick with this game. The game is so much fun. You know, other than the original time I played it, all I can think about is playing it again. And that's crazy that it's an old school indie 2D brawler that's not my type of game anymore. And I can't wait to get back into it. I can't wait to try and get to another level. I can't wait to see where the story goes, what I unlock next. It's a lot of fun. And anybody who has ever played a 2D brawler or is interested in playing a 2D brawler, you need to play this game. I tell you, if you play this game and you don't want to play this game anymore, 2D brawlers aren't for you. And if you love 2D brawlers, you have to play this game, because this is, in my opinion, the definitive 2D brawler that has ever been released. I personally have never played a better one. Just haven't. And I could get hate for that, maybe I will, but I have never played a better 2D brawler than this game. It's just absolutely phenomenal. It builds on the original, and I am definitely going to stick with it and play it. But that brings us to the end of the review. I hope I've helped some people out there. I hope my nostalgia didn't taint this too much for anybody. And if you want to check us out, we're on Facebook at Old Man Gaming DH, on Twitter at Old Man Gaming 9. You can join our Discord. The link is in the description below, and we love to talk with you guys. You can even request I do reviews. You can influence over almost any one of our shows from our Discord. And finally, as long as you guys keep watching and listening, I'll keep making them. I'll see you guys next week.